got over our technical issue that we had. So hopefully everyone's managed to get back online that's needed to. We're now back in public agenda, and the next item is item 6.1 on external audit matters. Shashini, I understand that you're going to be presenting, and welcome, because this will be your first time presenting to the Audit and Risk Committee. We're not scary, so welcome, and hope to meet you in person at some stage in the not too distant future. She's muted there too. And also welcome Yvonne.
Hi, Gwen. Hi, everyone.
Excellent. I'll hand over to you, Shashini.
Hello. Thank you, Chair. I'm Shashini. I'm the financial accountant. And yes, it's my first time doing this, so a bit scary. So we take the report as read, and we're happy to answer any questions. And Yvonne is with us. She'll be briefing on a couple of audit matters. So I can hand it over to her now. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Shashini. Well done for your first one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I take the reports as read. We got one audit plan attached, outline the main audit risks and issues, and focus areas for Tasman District Council for the year ending 30th June, it's not first, 30th June 2025. This year's key areas of audit focus area are consistent with prior year, with a few exceptions. The first one is the roads and building full valuation last year was through water, and the full valuation tend to rotate from different infrastructure assets and land and building assets. Considering last year the quality issue for the variation, we have been working with management to bring the roading and the bridges variation forward to 31st December variation, with the rest of the year being indexing. And in that case, we can have the audit work started in early June and hopefully finished by the end of the June, which is the financial year, so we can identify issues and resolve funding solutions at early stage to avoid any late surprise. The second change from last year audit plan is the Waimea Community Dam. So given the dam is now completed and all the construction claims are settled, we will plan to focus on the impairment assessment of the assets itself, which is measured at cost model for over $200 million, which half of the value will flow into the council's balance sheet. We will also follow up on our recommendation from last year audit in relation to its future long-term financing arrangement. The last one has been brought up. The report is the risk pool scheme. We have been made aware that although the risk pool is winding up, it actually reserved the right to make future calls for additional funding if needed. As of late last year, we are not aware of any further calls being made, but we are here and remind the council to consider the potential financial exposure relating to this matter. There will be a change to the material performance measure, which we will report on our next report to the committee, potentially our interim management letter. As the resource consent monitoring performance measure has been taken off from the recent long-term plan, we would then select the dairy farm compliance monitoring measure as material performance measure for 25J audits. If you need a reference, that's on page 18 of our audit report. Yeah, that's all I want to highlight here. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from committee members? No, you go first. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Through the chair. I just wanted to understand a little bit more the revaluation around roading and bridges, and just a couple of questions. So the 828 million, is that 100% of the value of the roads and bridges, or is it our 49 or 51%? Is my first question.
I didn't do the paper, maybe sashimi.
It is the
question.
It is our portion of the roading, which is shown in our annual report.
Okay, so it's are we 51 or 49? Whatever, to do with the far rate.
51.
51. So the 828 million is 51% of the value. So therefore, my question is, for the 49% of the value of roads and bridges, presumably they sit in the balance sheet of Waka Kotahi? Is that correct?
As an accountant, I would assume so, but we've got no visibility of that from this end. And is it a concern for this council?
Well, where I'm getting to is I'm just wanting to make sure that our approach to revaluation and therefore the subsequent treatment of depreciation is actually consistent. So I'm wanting to build that complete picture in my head.
I'll be making this up completely, but I thought the full value of the assets sits in our balance sheet, and then upon civil defence and disaster, Waka Kotahi funds the 40% of it if there is a disaster. But that's through the national. But I thought the full value of the assets sits in our books, Yvonne.
Yes, sorry, I was going to chip in as well. So I'm not sure the 800 million, but by reading the page, I suppose you referred to is the 30th June 2024 book value. That 800 million must be the capitalized infrastructure roading assets, that including Waka Kotahi funding already. Waka Kotahi will fund the 51% through grant, and the full value will be on the balance sheet on council's book.
Very much, yeah, I can confirm the full value sits on our balance sheet. When we look at the NZTA funding, something we take into account, and we were talking about, if we were fully funding depreciation on roads, it would be fully funding 51% of the total depreciation, on the grounds that the other 49% of that asset replacement is picked up by NZTA.
Thank you for that clarity. Councillor Mackenzie, you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you, through you, Chair. So just as a matter of interest, does Waka Kotahi fully fund the depreciation on their 49%?
I would not expect so. I mean, they deal with the, any contribution they need to make when they need to make that contribution.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Councillor Bryant, did you have a question?
I do have to refer what made for you, Mr. Chairman.
Supplementaries are quite okay.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll just start with the question first and see how we go. Firstly, Yvonne, just in relation to you talked about the Waimea Dam. Will your audit also cover the operation costs, or will you wait till there's a full year for that?
But yes, so Waimea Water Limited is a separate audit, and it is a council control organization, and there's a separate audit. Now it sits under my portfolio as well. So that CCO will be under a full statutory audit. Obviously, we're including the audit on operating expenditure.
Thank you. Secondly, you spoke about the dairy farm compliance audit. I take it that you're auditing our audit. Is that how it works, or?
Yes, yes, so the yes, so the dairy farm performance measure will report on whether or not all the active dairy farm in the district receive at least one inspection or audit. So we will be audit the performance result, not the actual dairy farm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's
Thank you. I couldn't actually find that, and I hadn't seen that when I'd been reading. So you said page 21. Was that in the audit, or?
It should be so the material performance measures on page yeah, sorry, it's 16 and your page is 26. It is not there. We will be amend the audit plan in our interim report to the council. So we select the resource consent monitoring, but it has been taken off from the long-term plan, which was an oversight from our side. So we have then select the dairy farm compliance performance measure instead. But the amendment will come through in the interim report to the council.
Thank you. And then finally, just in relation to your proposed costs, could you just talk us through that a little? And I guess the main question is, why such a jump?
So the budget hour have not since changed for 2 years now. The main reason for the increase is mainly relates to the decrease in discount. So for the 2023 and 2024 financial year, we have been given the council significant amount of or percentage of discount. And as agreed in previous year, that was a approach we were happy to offer to the council to smooth the audit fee increase. And 2025 is the last year with the least discounts that we could afford to offer.
Thank you. So how will that affect us going forward? We'll be paying full market price, will we? In future years?
Oh, from 2026?
Yes.
We have not moderate the next fee round year, so 2026 to 2028 will be another local government fee moderation round, and that we will be obviously considering the actual audit hours and rebudget our future audit hours based on that. And then that will go through an OAG moderation process. I have not have any visibility of that yet. So we will be doing that early next year.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
I might just chip in there and refer you, Councillor Bryant, to some papers of about this time last year where we worked through the various fee increases and that moderation. So I don't have those at hand, but I can remember the papers and the schedules there where we ran through the reasons for the increases, and I think we had some reasonably solid discussions with Yvonne's predecessor. That's all from you. Any other questions? Annalisa.
Just one comment from me, Yvonne, just really the fee. I know that we have had robust conversations, as you probably have with all your council clients around the country around fee increases. I guess just to be mindful, which you're very aware of, is the financial challenge that this council faces. So yes, we've agreed the fee and we've worked through that, but what we really don't want to have is huge overruns that surprise us at the end of the audit. So we've kind of fingers crossed and setting ourselves up for success. That, you know, we've got great continuity with the same team. We've got great lessons learnt from last year and values, and we lost time. So we're hopeful and expecting that, yeah, there won't be $1 of overrun on, hopefully, because we are set up for success. So, but obviously, if anything does happen, then as you know, the earlier the better, so that we can have financial certainty around what the
Absolutely, yeah.
position is.
I definitely concur with you. And to minimize the cost is our mutual interest. So we have been talking to management at early stage. For example, we agree on bringing the variation forward. And yeah, a lot of lessons learned from last year. We have resolved a large amount of accounting technical issue already last year. So yeah, I am expecting a very minimum or even less than $1, hopefully, finger crossed, overrun. But we will keep the communication channel up and identify issues early and resolve them with management as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie.
Yes, sorry, thank you. I did have a couple more questions that I forgot before, but looking at my notes now. First one, I just wanted to focus on a little bit more on the impairment assessment of property, plant and equipment. And it talks particularly that it's going to focus on the Waimea Community Dam. So what's the methodology that's going to be applied? We know we've got a cost to complete dam that's sitting there now, that cost, more than what we had originally thought. And so, yeah, how are you going to determine whether there's an impairment?
Yeah, so methodology-wise, I guess accounting standards quite clear around that in terms of the indication review, the impairment indicator review, and for non-cash generating assets such as the Waimea Community Dam, value in use is required to determine either using a depreciated replacement cost approach or restoration cost approach or a service unit approach. So all these methodology are there. We have, as the auditor for Waimea Water Limited, we have already communicated this audit focus area to them, and then the management has agreed to prepare the impairment assessment paper through to us as part of the Waimea Water Limited audit.
Okay. Could I understand a little bit more about the New Zealand Mutual Liability Risk Pool scheme? So I see that a call was made on scheme members for 12.9 million to cover shortfalls. What's our council's percentage exposure to that?
Through Mr. Chair. The invoice for council was around the $35,000 mark, so we're a relatively small part. And obviously, each of the years is in a separate pool, and so we're only responsible for a share in relation to the years in which we participated in the pool.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. Look, I just wanted to ask a question about the new ISA 600 standard, which it's in 5.5. That is actually going to have to be, you're going to have to work under that, and that it is possibly going to require more work from our staff. And I'm just wondering if that is going to be significant or not. or is it a minor thing? Sorry if I put you on the spot.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy to
you.
answer. It's an easy one. So what we put on here, I think you refer to page 11 of our report. So there will be more work for us to do, and not for council staff or any management. So that is to do with the group reporting standard that require mainly around the risk assessment of the group audit, and a conceptual definition of component audit has changed as well, and a quite step up in terms of robust communication between the group auditor and a component auditor. So essentially, there's more work for us to do, and the additional work will more related to the communication with the IHL component. But we have done a bit of work internally to offset the additional work around the other component that's within our same firm. So I'm not expecting significant more work that I need to let the community know, or any change of scope to the audit fee or audit scope at this stage.
Thanks. That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions before I chip in? One assumes at interim stage that you will go through the validation about the class of assets and our assessment of expected movement and revaluations. Has that been done at this stage, or is it to come?
Yes, the interim started in May, and we can potentially look at a fair value assessment for the rest of the infrastructure asset not up for variation. But the final fair value assessment will still need to be wait until the index be published around August. And then from early June, we will be doing the roading and the bridges full variation that was prepared as of 31st December 2024. Yes, I guess the answer is yes.
Excellent, thank you for that. It's just that these things coming along with a late revaluation tends to throw a complete spanner in the works. So it's nice if we can get it ticked off nice and early. Other questions I had there with understand the changes to ISA 600 and the fact that you're the auditor of Waimea Water, but you're not the auditor of the new infrastructure entity with the airport and the port. So you are somewhat hamstrung as to when you can do stuff there, and you're dependent on others. The joys of being the parent auditor in this case. And again, you need Waimea Water to complete to allow the consolidation. So it's a wee bit of a stack of cards, which is just moving towards the comments we had from our forum earlier about the ability for us to sign off prior to the election. And the submitter made the point, and rightly so, how does the new councillors know what's going on? I guess that's why you've got some independents that carry on through the process, but logistically it's very difficult to, in this circumstance, be able to move adoption forward to prior to the election on 11 October due to these other entities. So I just thought I'd make that particular point through at this stage. Any final comments from anyone before we take the recommendation? The recommendation we have is set out on page 4 and on the screen in front of us. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bryant and Annalisa, thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further comment? If not, all those in favour say aye. Against a penny, and no abstentions noted, carried. Moving forward on to item 6.2, I understand, looking at the screen there, that Amy's there. Yes. Sorry about squinting, Amy. My glasses aren't zoomed in for this range. And welcome. I'll hand it over to you to take us through this. Page 38 for anyone that's looking.
You're on mute, Amy. You're on mute, Amy.
Sorry, it said Kelsey had to unmute me. It wouldn't let me do it myself. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to take the report as read, but I will provide a brief summary of some of the points through the report. One of the key things from the attached risk report is the escalation of the financial strategic risk. And alongside that, I provided within the confidential section of the meeting, there is an attachment, which is the operational risk register. My report also provides information on recommendations from previous audits and reviews and the progression of those, and provides a number of audits and reviews that we have underway or are about to begin. And I've also commented on the conflict of interest management and how we're progressing with that. And we have introduced a little bit of training with that. And the next step with that is to start looking at inductions for new staff. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from committee members? I'll chime in with one whilst perhaps committee members are reflecting. 5.3.3, the draft audit report on the IAG flood protection audit is expected early in March for review. Have we seen it since the papers have gone out, and do you have any indications if it hasn't come out of what findings might be and any implications as an early warning sign?
I personally haven't seen it. I can't see who's in the room. If Rob Smith is in the room, he might be able to add some context. No, otherwise, I was intending to get back to you at the next Audit and Risk Committee, and I'm sure Council may have further information prior to that June meeting, but I will be able to provide information at the next Audit and Risk, I'm sure.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Yes, I did have a couple of questions. When I was reading the risk description around the financial risk, which has been upgraded in terms of its rating, it's kind of a minor point, but it seemed to me that the description of the risk is probably not insufficient funds to deliver services and functions, because at the end of the day, the council's never going to put itself in that position. The risk would be more around unacceptably high rates increases, wouldn't it? Anyway, Mike, you might want to comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think the risk is actually correctly described. The challenge is that if due to a need to moderate rates rises, we find ourselves in a situation where we have insufficient funds to deliver the work required by a budget, or we have insufficient funds or insufficient debt headroom to respond to, for example, a natural disaster event. So I believe the risk is correctly described, and it's a risk that councillors are currently grappling with as you go through your annual plan workshops.
Yeah, okay. Might be more of a cup of tea conversation. So happy to have that. My other question related to the comment about oh, hang on, it's on page 40. I'll just get there. 39, 40. Oh, asset management evaluation, paragraph 5.2.1. So we've got the outcome of interviews and questions from the asset management evaluation, identified some gaps. Findings indicate a solution to connect registers where assets are recorded. So I guess this is trying to make sure that we can have confidence in ultimately in our asset register. But what are we imagining is going to be the solution here?
So this review was undertaken by Deirdre, and she's still preparing the final report, which will be presented when she gets back from leave. She's back at the end of April. We have a number of places where we record assets. So we have, I believe, Confirm, we have some in the financial system. So there are a number of places across council, and it's about making sure that we can connect the information in both, whether that's I'm assuming through a shared referencing system or some other way to make sure the information can be confirmed between the different systems.
I guess when I read it, I was like, I mean, it sounds an easy thing to write. In practice, actually getting something, a solution to meet the needs of the business might be somewhat more challenging, but and then it takes me to the fact that, is this in our budget? Are we planning to do something? Have we provided all this work and got a budget set aside?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I saw you looking at me and I thought, oh, you're probably wanting an answer from me. So there's operational funding that's set aside as part of the digital budget for general improvements. There isn't anything specifically in our digital innovation program to revisit our asset management per se, but we have got money in there to look at a number of the systems to which Amy is referring. And so we have a system called Confirm. We're looking at the moment about upgrading that, and then in the process of doing that, how do we connect, for want of another word, a layer which gives us visibility across multiple systems. We're always going to have multiple systems because we're required to have RAM. So even if we aligned everything else we've got, we'll have to have a minimum of 2. At the moment, we've got 3 or 4 key ones, and then a bunch of less sophisticated things like spreadsheets and schedules and registers and stuff. So I guess the word that perhaps might be missing in there that would have given you a bit more clarity is indicate a need for a solution, rather than one has actually been found and identified and budgeted for. But we'll do what we can do with our existing systems and how we can modernise those in the meantime. It'll be a progressive thing.
Mike, did you wish to add to that?
If I could, Mr. Chair, one of the challenges we've got is also the quality of the information that is within some of our systems, particularly given there's a significant number of them. So that's an ongoing piece of work to improve the asset information, which flows through to better financial reporting, but also into better information for insurance schedules. Unfortunately, as Steve has indicated, council doesn't have, like a smaller organisation would be, we've got one fixed asset system and it sits attached to our financials. We've got multiple systems and they have grown over time. And also we have significant additions every year. We might have, $50 to $90 million worth of new assets going in each year, as well as the condition assessment and other work that flows in. So the fixed asset area is quite a large item for council, a couple of $1 billion worth of assets, but also one that has quite a high level of complexity.
I might just add there, with my experience across a number of audit risk committees, you're not alone. And this is very often on the list of the councils with the state of the fixed asset systems, complexity, dealing with work in progress for assets that cross balance dates, having to have RAM and other systems. So this is quite normal in the sector from my point of view. Annalisa.
Kia ora, ka pai. Thank you, Amy. Right, health and safety. One of the risks here is health and safety. Okay, risk report. Jumping to that space first. I think the way, just kind of back to a point that was made earlier, I think the way the majority of the risks are worded, they are well worded for when thinking about these are our strategic level risks. What probably jumped out at me when you do have time is to go back and reassess the likelihood of these strategic level risks. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One of them would be that if we have health and safety, that's why I started with health and safety. If we have health and safety as a strategic level risk, and one of our biggest risks that we've got, we may say the likelihood is almost certain, right? So something's going to happen. And that's going to raise quite to me as a governor, that's going to rate, if I see that risk in the top right-hand corner of our heat map when it relates to health and safety, it's going to make me a little bit kind of jumpy and a little bit nervous. If we reword the risk to be serious harm or fatality and not meeting the our obligations under the Health and Safety at Work Act, then hopefully, and I'm sure we can, we're not going to say the likelihood is almost certain, because hopefully in a 12-month period, we're not going to have serious harm or a fatality. And serious harm can obviously be physical or psychosocial. And the other one that jumps out is a natural disaster, a disaster event. And I know geographically where we are in the Tasman district, that every year there is something. But maybe just again, Amy, have a think about how you word that risk, because I know you've put it up there and almost certain, but maybe the wording just needs to be tweaked slightly to go major natural disaster that causes millions of dollars of damage and outage for several days, but because these are our biggest risks that we're trying to manage. And as governors, we always get nervous when there's risks in that top right-hand corner, because I always kind of use the cliche, if those risks eventuate, it's close doors and go home. You know, they're that great. So the financial risk I actually think is well worded, because normally when you have a financial risk in your strategic risk register, it is about the inability to deliver on your strategy, which I guess is on our long-term plan, it's on our services, it's on our operations. So I think the way that risk is worded is correct. I think coming back to your point about, without opening up a big can of worms around that risk, and the topic of the day around rate increases, that might be actually linked to more of a trust and confidence kind of risk, which could be around, almost reputational risk. And so I'm not saying that's not a risk, but that's probably more around, loss of trust and confidence from our ratepayers and others. And anyway, so there's a few commentary on me on the risk stuff. I had a general question just for when we say we have completed internal audits or audits, just for my, do we get access to those reports, Amy? Or do you normally just give us a summary as you have that these one is underway or they're completed?
So the procurement aerodromes and limbs reviews have all been presented to the Audit Risk Committee at some point, but they were a while ago.
Right.
If you would like to see them, since you weren't here at the time, I'm happy to provide copies of those.
Awesome. No, I just wanted to understand the process. That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Butler?
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Amy. I'm just reading through the different risks for the disaster events, and I do see that these have been mapped to the primary strategic risk, and I'm not actually quite sure what that all means in relation to these particular things, because I don't, some of these I just sort of question actually whether or not they are, how high risk they are. For example, the Collingwood wastewater treatment plant and the Takaka Township isolation due to flooding. I'd be inclined to say that the Takaka Township inundation due to flooding. And it doesn't seem to have anything there about the breaching of the Motueka River stock banks and mentions Brooklyn stock banks. So my question is really, how is this list put together, and does it get reviewed? Because if we do have a very serious event which is actually not on that list, which is highly possible, then we haven't actually identified it. It just seems to be that there's kind of specifics there, when in actual fact there's a whole host of other specifics out there that are not on the list. So, yeah.
I will. So there's a few things. so how these risks are identified, they're identified by me talking with each of the third tier and some of the team leaders as well. I've been doing this for about 1-2 rounds now. I've got talking to everyone to make sure I'm identifying as many of the high and very high risks as I can find across council. And then updating them the next time I meet with the managers. The aim in the long term is to have the managers updating the risk registers on their own. The risks you've talked about, there's further detail on those in the operational risk register, which is contained in the confidential section of this meeting's agenda. You're right, there might be some that are missing. And based on the ones you've raised, I can talk with the specific managers about those if they fall to that level. Based on the information that or the feedback that Annalisa has just provided, I'll probably also do a little bit of work with some of these to make sure it's around serious impact or serious loss based on rather than just any, which may mean some of those risks aren't as high on the register as we have them now. But it's a work in progress. So, you know, as we find more risks, they may already be identified at council. It may just be that I haven't captured them yet, I think is the point.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Work in progress.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments before I throw in a last one? Paragraph 7.1.2 about the whistleblower procedures. We're currently in March and looking at pushing out to December. Does cause me a level of concern given that 90% plus of fraud notifications comes from tips, i.e. whistleblower or other staff members. So for me, in the current economic climate, where there are a lot of people under pressure, which could lead reasonable people to consider doing unreasonable things, just due to sheer pressures, I think we need to make sure that our whistleblower procedures are top notch. They may well be, and it may only be a review, but I'm not clear from the paper as to the status of that one.
Yeah, I can talk to that. So we recently republished the procedures and notified those to staff so they're aware of them. I have had a good look through them and they meet most of the almost all of the obligations within the thing. There were a few things that I thought could be tweaked, but on discussion, we thought we should leave those a little bit longer to when we're pushing it out again. If we remind people too frequently, they forget about it. If we give them sort of 6 months or so, then that gives them sort of, that backs up the information without having them forget it. But the vast majority of the procedures were basically same as legislation and are compliant with the recommendations from, I can't remember, is it the OAG who makes the recommendations, with their recommendations. So there was very, very minor changes that I thought might be useful. We also have, in terms of fraud, we've also been encouraging staff to attend the Counter Fraud Centre webinars, which are happening at the moment. So they're free webinars for local government staff. So we're making sure that staff are aware of these free resources so that they can be aware of things that might be signs of fraud and can raise those to our attention as well.
Just supplementary question, do we have some posters around the offices and other places, such as the toilets, for instance, indicating that if you have an issue, how to make contact so that we can maximise the chances of getting any tips should anything be going on, bearing in mind that I think it was 93% of frauds are alerted by tips.
No, we don't. I can look into that. I think it's important to have that associated with some other activity. Posters can become a bit of a blind spot if they're up for too long. So it's probably a good idea to make sure that maybe it's sort of a one-off and we take them down and put them up again occasionally. So yeah, I can look into doing that.
Yeah, so what you could do, because again, you want to get the culture right, that we suddenly are accusing everyone in the body that we're committing fraud. But Fraud Awareness Week is a good time to do that, Amy. Like it's 1 week a year, so you might be able to do posters then, though. it's fraud awareness week this week, and just like it is when it's privacy awareness, there's an awareness week for everything, I'm sure, but there's a privacy awareness week, and
I believe that's in November.
Yeah, we took advantage of that last year, and we encouraged staff to go to the webinars from the County Fraud Office then, and we put up some posts on the intranet, and I think we put up a few posters at the same time as well.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I put the recommendation? Recommendations on the screen. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Butler. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Against, if any? And no abstentions noted, carried. The next item is 6.3, which is the Health and Safety and Wellbeing report. And Amy, welcome to the team. We're just getting you up on screen so everyone can see you.
Except she's going to watch me present it.
Oh, okay.
So through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much, members of the committee. I've got the pleasure of presenting the Health and Safety and Wellbeing report. As the report points out, our most recent manager for health and safety, Karen, has resigned and left the organisation a couple of weeks ago. Might have been as long ago as 3 or 4 weeks now. And Deirdre is away overseas on holiday, so it falls to me to present the report for you. So somewhat like a lamb to the slaughter, I table the report as read, and am happy to take any questions. Before doing so, I did receive a question by email around the statistic which we quote in the paper that refers to bullying in the workplace. And I've provided a bit of a summary of the information that we've got about that. Apologies, Councillor Ellis. I will get a copy of that through to you electronically. I thought you might have been here in the room today. So with that said, I'm happy to take any other questions.
Any questions from committee members? Annalisa?
No, can we not, this is not a telling off, but can we not write the health and safety report taken as read? And maybe do you just want to talk through the key highlights just so that we can document that and then move to questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that said, if I call out the summary of the report and speak to some of the highlights in it, one of the key ones that I'd like to speak to is that the health and safety program at Tasman District Council continues to be developed and continues to evolve. We are refining our processes and our procedures and our risk management approach, and increasing the collaboration that we've got across council staff. As I've said, we have had a departure of Karen from the team leader role, and there are a number of staff that are stepping up and into the mix to help us as we go through that period of time while we recruit a new team leader. The staff have participated in a number of training programs and initiated actions which are in the draft work plan, which is attached to this document. A couple of other things that have happened recently in the wellbeing space: we have established a wellbeing ambassadors program, and a number of ambassadors, I think about 16, have been appointed across council. And a working group has been established to draft diversity, equity and inclusion guidelines. Our annual Ask Your Team survey is completed, which was completed in October 2024, identified a number of wellbeing related outcomes that have been included in that report. And psychosocial risk, which has been identified by staff as the most common area where there is abusive, aggressive or intimidating behaviour from members of the public to be addressed. The dashboard has been included and as attachment 1. And there are a number of safety priorities and items of progress which are identified in there. The lead indicators which I would draw your attention to is near miss reporting and safety observations particularly. It is those things that occur that give us the most opportunity to learn from what's going on in our environment and the opportunity to take interventions and place mitigations where needed. Also draw your attention to the amount of training which has gone on, particularly in respect of vehicles and first aid. The number of workstation health checks is not particularly large, but we've also got a pretty stable workforce in place, and most of our staff are using, most if not all actually, are using raise height desks and the appropriate furniture which goes with those. We've also had a push to improve the level of the number of health and safety representatives that we've got, and have made some inroads in getting some new members on that committee and have included a new terms of reference for that committee as well. If I skip to item 6, reimagining health and safety, it's part of the conversation that I want to have with the Audit and Risk Committee is about how we revisit not only the report to this committee to provide useful information to members, but also how we take what is a pretty established practice, I suppose you could say, in workplaces around health and safety, and we reposition that in a way which engages our staff more so than just a function which happens every month to some people that are in the organisation, and a report that indicates that we've had a number of near misses, or dare I say it, some items which probably wouldn't chin the bar in terms of a health and safety, requiring health and safety intervention. So we are looking for advice and guidance on how we might do that. And I've already referred to the fact that we have got wellbeing ambassadors and diversity, equity and inclusion in place. Any questions?
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve, I could just start with the last point.
Mm-hmm.
What's the role of the wellbeing ambassadors? Is that just, can you expand on that a little bit?
I can, but the person who can expand it on it better than me is sitting right up the front, and that's Joanna. So I'll hand it to her.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the purpose of Wellbeing Ambassadors is to provide another avenue for our employees to approach where they may have something that they wish to have some support with. It might be a sensitive matter, it could be a personal matter. They're really there to help facilitate that person in order to get the right support. It's not their role to provide it or be a counsellor. They're there to help point them in the right direction in terms of EAP services, other information available on our intranet and places like that. Correct.
Councillor Mackenzie, followed by Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through the chair. Just the Ask Your Team survey results. I mean, congratulations on the participation rate, because I think that's quite high. I guess the thing that I don't understand from it, because it's an annual survey, which is, if we've been doing this now for a few years, how can we see the trend over time? Otherwise, it's just one static piece of information against a benchmark. So it would be more helpful to see how we're trending.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely, and I'll ask Joanna to speak about this as well, because but I can give you my interpretation as a people leader in the business. Our results are good by my experience in organisations outside of this one, and they do tend to follow a pretty flat trend over a number of years, because we do look at historical data. When you get into the sorts of numbers that we're talking about, the very high 60s and 70s and 80s, your ability to actually initiate much change beyond that becomes a harder and harder task. And so what I see when I look at these results is something which has been trending pretty high and pretty flat for quite a long period of time, and it does make it difficult sometimes to move that needle. The amount of investment that's required to get to a particular point is something that's difficult sometimes for us to justify in some areas. But having said that, I'll throw over to Joanna.
So I accept that. I guess we don't see the trend. So without going back to maybe last year or whatever, which we probably shouldn't have to do, I think it would be useful to just include some information about the trend. Otherwise, it's invisible to us.
Absolutely, and we have all of that information because we go through it as a senior leadership team and also as a executive leadership team. What we're seeing here is a process of some of the information that's in it.
Joanna, do you need to, or can you add anything to that?
I think Steve's covered it quite well, that we can provide that trending.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through your chair. Just to go back to where Deputy Mayor was, the ambassadors program, how is that actually resourced? Like, I get that they're a conduit and I get they're doing some great mahi, but how is that resourced?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that just comes, that's just one up to one hour a week of people's personal time at work. So it's, I guess it depends on the funding model that sits behind each person's salary grade, but you essentially it's resourced by the council's salary budget. Through you, Mr. Chair, in the same way that Health Safety Committee meetings and other working groups that are about things that occur in the workplace.
Any other questions? Annalisa?
Final couple of comments from me. Thank you for the report. Realise that it's a working in progress kind of report, and it will get better and better. You know, sometimes the best way to get best in class reporting is by, you know, having that independent review, but I realise that comes at a cost. So I think I've said this previously, but you know, there are some very kind of larger, mature councils around the country that have large health and safety teams. So, you know, through Mr. Chair's contacts and my contacts, you know, maybe that's something we can help you with, trying to reach out with our neighbours to see where we can kind of be just continually getting better and better, because we, as you know, we can never be great. We can just keep getting better and better, because we never want to be complacent when it comes to health and safety and wellbeing. The reporting on near misses and incidents, I want to just reiterate that reporting of incidences, and we've got a table of things that have happened within the quarter, is a good thing. Reporting is a good thing. And so to have, you know, you can have all the best PPE, you can have a massive big team, but if you don't have good health and safety culture, then it's just never going to work. So I think the culture has to be continually that we keep having the confidence to report things that are happening and learn from them and close the loop and kind of mitigate the risk going forward. So if there was nothing in there, if we had a clean piece of paper that said nothing's happened in the months, that's when I'd get really, really nervous, because actually the more near misses that are happening, you know, there's proven kind of research that the more near misses you have, then the less fatalities you have, right? Because you ultimately learn from them. In the psychosocial space, again, commend the work that you're doing. You know, we can never underestimate the importance of that. You know, touch wood, if we ever do have any kind of incident and we are investigated, you will be asked as governors, what have you been doing to protect your kaimahi? What have you been doing to protect the well-being of, you know, everyone inside this organisation when they come to work, that they feel safe. And so now I've got one last question, which might be for you, Steve, or Mr. Chief Executive. And we can have, and I had this question asked to me a long time ago. I find it's a really good question, but it's a hard question. Is that you can have surveys, you can have all the best initiatives and programs in place. But as a governor, how do I know my people are well? You know, and when I talk about that, I talk about it from a mental health perspective, because at the moment, you know, we've only sort of flown in for a day and fly out, but, you know, we've heard that, you know, there's a lot of the hard time at the moment in the council. You know, there's a lot of, all councils around New Zealand have got extreme high workloads. A lot of councils have got financial pressures. So, you know, is there kind of any commentary or, you know, are our people well? Is there anything we can do as governors to support you, or, yeah, something to be mindful of and keep working towards?
Who wants to go first? Are our people well? It's a really vexing question. So the only response that I can give you to that one is my own personal subjective assessment. And I would base that, so my frame of reference is probably around the way in which people go about their activity in the office. So the level of humour, the level of conversation, the sorts of things that people talk about. And I think I had a conversation this morning saying that I wonder, in fact it was with you, about how many other councils are going through a purple march, because I think our people at the moment are pretty tired. The conversations that I'm hearing in the corridors and in the office of people expressing that tiredness, that there are some big nettlesome problems that our staff are grappling with and that they are genuinely trying their best with and don't necessarily see a clear path to resolving. So that would tell me that our levels of stress and our levels of anxiety are there. I think our people demonstrate a particular level of care, not only for their colleagues, but also for the community, because we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing with our financial situation and how that is going to impact our community down the road. So I would say that at the moment, my subjective assessment is that we're under pressure and that things are mixed, would be where I would put it. Is it sufficiently worrying to me that that it would make its way into a report? No, not yet. If it continued for a quarter, then perhaps I would expect to see something. There's still a certain level of humour. That's what I would say.
Did you want to add to that? If the answer is no, that's cool.
I mean, probably the question of how would you know by flying in and flying out, and kind of like, rather than walking around the building and talking to people, I guess it's partly through reporting, partly through the number of days people are taking. My sense is that we're in March and people can't wait for Christmas. Because it's kind of really gone, we've really ramped up very, very quickly. We have pockets of people who are unwell because of stress, which worries me. Not sufficiently unwell that they're perhaps taking lots of time off, but enough to say that, hey, we can't keep doing this. So, and of course, there's also that background tension. They know there's conversations going on about resourcing, because every vacancy comes through the leadership team, and we're pushing back on a lot, and people are going, well, we can't pick up the extra work. So we're having to make decisions around, you know, being very, very mindful of their leadership team about, okay, so if we don't recruit for that role, what happens to the work that person was doing? And we're having some really, I would say, honest and hard conversations, and pushing back and say, actually, we just have to stop doing that. Or, you know, things might have to be delayed because we're trying to keep a lid, and the work just keeps increasing, and it's central government is not, yeah, I mean, unfunded, more work, local water's done well, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because, yeah, I would say that next audit and risk, I would like to think we had a little bit of a review on where we're at, and then report back, because I think in the next 3 months we're going to see some worrying trends.
Joanna.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just put some more a traditional lens across it from my perspective, in that valuing our staff is one of our internal 3 organisational strategic priorities, and how we would sort of bring life to that is through a range of ways. So we've done a lot of effort in the last couple of years to make sure that our employment benefits and offerings are as broad and varied as we can outside of paying people, so that we're creating that environment where there's things in there that I guess appeal to individuals, different times in their life and what they might need from a workplace. We do a lot of reduced hours, flexible working hours for our people as well. I think since COVID, I can definitely say our sick leave usage has reduced, and there's a mix of things in there. It's because now people can work from home when they're slightly unwell versus entirely unwell. I'm not seeing any major spikes in our sick leave space. We do hear from new people when they come to work for us that they find that they comment on our culture, and they comment specifically that we have a better culture than where they've just come from. And sometimes that's our neighbouring, our neighbouring organisations, as opposed to being outside of our district. I don't think our EAP usage is seeing any particular spikes. It's at a similar average of usage across a year, typically 25 to 35 clients, as they would be described. We meet quarterly with our PSA delegates and our organiser, and they certainly hold us to task on things that their membership is bringing to them, and ask for, for us to explain why, or make changes to our policies and other things that we're doing. And I think there was one other thing, and our turnover in the last 3 years since we've introduced medical insurance, our turnover has dramatically increased and continues to increase. Decrease, and is continuing that trend of decreasing. And I think that's an immediate response to again, the employer, the council as an employer, really putting itself in that valuing our staff organisational priority.
Any further comments?
Just that's a really good question. It was really hard to answer that question because not everything is down to the metrics and the reports and the surveys that you do. And actually, to carry on from where I was before, I've been reflecting on some stuff that we're doing around digital change and the change fatigue that we've got in that space, or the anticipation of future change fatigue. So some of the stories that you're hearing from people are a little bit, they're a little bit anxious about what lies ahead.
One thing I've been noticing is the rate of change is greater than I've ever experienced in the sector, and I've been associated with the sector for quite a long time. And a lot of it is the thing about mental well-being and mental health is that you don't come with an arm which is all bandaged up, a plaster on. You don't come obviously exhibiting a high temperature, and therefore it can get minimised easily. And I just reflect back to my early days 40 years ago as a graduate auditor at peak season. And I just sort of said, how do we get all this done? And I was told by a partner, laddie, you've just got to learn to sleep faster. And, that approach has proven to be not a sound approach. And we're focused on the staff that we employ. But all I'd say is, what about our elected members? What about our community board members? Have we actually done all that we need to do to make sure they're have access to EAP? Because they're taking the front end of our ratepayers and families that are struggling. We're looking at rate increases, trying to balance how do we get it done in the same dollars. And the answer might be it's impossible, but they are the meat and the sandwich often between the public, as are our public-facing people who come and potentially have heated conversations. So we need to think about this, but I'd just like to throw in the challenge, what are we doing about all our elected members, our community board members, and those people? Have we actually done and what we need to there for their health and well-being as well? And sometimes they get forgotten because the focus is all from the HR team to the employed people. And I wonder whether we need to think upwards. So I'll just leave that thought on the table to see where Trinity.
Thank you for your chair, and really appreciate what you've just raised and brought to the table. Because I'm mindful when I started on this committee in my first term, and the CEO of the day was talking about finally putting together a well-being plan for the staff, Tasman District Council. And at that point, I said, what lens do we look through to support elected members? And you're the first person to now raise it here, albeit maybe into my second term, which is like nearly 6 years sitting at this table. And I think it's a very valid point. And for some of our elected members, you can wear an unseen condition, illness, and it's relevant and it appears quite often in some of our meetings. But it's the elephant in the room that we never get to talk about. And I just want to thank you for raising it and putting it on the table.
No problems. It's just what I'm seeing around the various councils I'm involved in, that we're in high level of change, poor economic times. We are continuously being asked to do more with less, and there's a limit point and there's a breaking point. And you as councillors and the various elected members are really at the front end of these decisions. So I just sort of wonder what we're doing about that. I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to get it thought about. So I'll wait with interest to see what can be done.
Maybe I could close that out through you, Mr. Chair. You do raise a really good point, and there are we're going into an election year. We've got a challenging set of circumstances which are around the positions that we need to put before the public. And I think as an organisation, we need to be mindful for all of the people that represent those ideas elected members are part of that, just a staff part of that. We do have a specific set of obligations to our staff that doesn't extend itself to our elected members. And I'm not saying that as an excuse to say that we shouldn't do something, but I'm saying that that means we probably need to address that in a different way than we would through some of the more traditional avenues that we've got through staff and for staff. So I think that there is a role to play for committee chairs, the mayor, community board chairs, in terms of how that care gets extended to the community board members and elected members that are in their sphere. So we'll have a bit of a chat about that offline and see what we can come back with.
Certainly agree. The legislation doesn't put it there, but we've got a moral obligation, human to human. Any other last comments? We have a recommendation on screen. Do I have a move for that? We received the report. You're happy, Annalisa? Councillor Mackenzie, thank you. Any last discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Against, if any? Carried. The next item we've got is moving into PX. It is on screen. My apologies earlier for not picking that up and probably putting more hot air into the room than was necessary. We have a mover for the motion on board, Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Bryant. Thank you. No discussion? There being none, all those in favour? Against, if any? No abstentions noted.